We often picture historical explorers as lone heroes staring boldly into the horizon. The actual experience of 17th century sea travel was a grim, claustrophobic reality of a fragile wooden ship trapped in a violent ocean. In 1609, an English explorer named Henry Hudson captained a small vessel called the Half Moon. That ship operated as a tiny, completely isolated ecosystem, floating thousands of miles from any safe harbor. The stakes aboard were absolute. There was no backup plan and no rescue party. If a single crew member failed to perform their specific duties, whether tying a knot or sealing a barrel, the entire ship and everyone on it could be lost. Surviving the open ocean came down to absolute mandatory teamwork and daily grinding endurance from every man on board. The money funding this immense risk came from a very specific corporate entity, the Dutch East India Company. This is a financial ledger from the era. It proves exactly what drove these men into the perilous unknown. They were not sailing out of scientific curiosity. They were operating under a strict corporate mandate to generate profit. The objective was incredibly precise: find a fast, lucrative shortcut through the Americas to reach the highly valuable silks and spices of Asia. But there was a major flaw. The actual scale of the North American continent made a straight water route geographically impossible. Ignorant of the geography waiting for them, Hudson and his crew sailed blindly into a vast, uncharted void, propelled forward entirely by the heavy pressure of corporate economics. Life below the deck of the Half Moon was miserable. The crew lived stacked together in cramped, freezing quarters where everything they touched remained constantly damp. Keeping the ship moving required grueling physical labor. Men spent their days wrestling with heavy, waterlogged sails in freezing winds and managing food and water supplies that slowly decayed over the long voyage. The psychological toll of maintaining this extreme physical labor for weeks on end, surrounded entirely by an empty, flat horizon, was immense. The crew themselves came from different backgrounds and spoke different languages. Out on the water, all of those personal differences had to be set completely aside so the ship could simply function. Their survival was an incredible engineering feat of human cooperation. It relied on unbroken daily routine and total mutual reliance. When the crew finally spotted land, the geography looked entirely wrong. The coastline and weather matched absolutely none of the descriptions of Asia they were expecting to find. Instead of the East Indies, they sailed into a massive, wide river, lined with towering stone cliffs and vast forests of vibrant autumn trees. They pushed further up this unknown waterway. The crew spent hours carefully dropping weighted lines over the side to check the river's depth, and drawing intricate maps of the winding shores. As they traveled, they met the native peoples who already lived along the riverbanks, engaging in their first cautious, peaceful encounters with the local populations. Recognizing the resources around them, the crew quickly shifted their economic focus. They began successfully exchanging tools with the native peoples for highly valuable furs. The deeply ingrained teamwork they used to survive the brutal ocean crossing allowed them to pivot seamlessly. They transitioned from surviving the elements to successfully executing frontline diplomacy and trade. But then, the water grew shallow. The ship could go no further, proving conclusively that this river was definitely not a passage to Asia. The crew turned the Half Moon around. They sailed all the way back across the Atlantic to Europe, believing they had failed their primary corporate objective. When Hudson presented his findings, the Dutch East India Company was actually thrilled by his detailed reports of rich natural resources and established native trade networks. Success was instantly redefined. Finding an exploitable new frontier was recognized as far more valuable than finding a simple shortcut. Those detailed reports sparked immediate action. A rapid wave of Dutch settlement followed close behind Hudson's route across the ocean. They built small, fortified trading posts right along the water's edge, laying the direct physical foundation for an entirely new colonial settlement. The tiny, isolated wooden deck of the Half Moon eventually gave way to the sprawling global hub that grew from those first waterfront outposts, New York City. The captain left his own personal mark on the geography, too. That magnificent, wide waterway still bears the name the Hudson River today. Hudson's journey proves that setting out into the unknown requires unified teamwork, and the results of that endurance are often far larger and vastly more important than the original goal.